Prospect House Media.
And now, prepare yourself for the only weekly podcast you won't want to miss. Welcome to the Ameritocracy Show with Troy Edgar, live from our studios in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C.
Hey everybody, I am Troy Edgar and welcome to the Ameritocracy Show. Thank you for tuning in and checking it out. It is greatly appreciated. This podcast examines the conditions for personal and professional growth and opportunity across America. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Ameritocracy Show. Today's Sidebar episode is with Rich Pierce, Olympic surfing judge, professional surfing judge. And Rich, I just want to welcome you to the show today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Troy.
Yeah. So, Rich, you've been kind enough to come. You're on your way to the Olympics.
Yes.
And you and I had got together about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to really just have an official send-off for you as you head over to the Olympics and meet up as one of the official judges over there. I see you wore a shirt. Usually we're in Hawaiian shirts. I don't think I got the memo. I know you're with the association that basically is a professional association that gets everything and organizes the whole process to put judges into the Olympics. Can you talk about the organization?
Yeah. It's the ISA, or the International Surfing Association. We are the governing body of Olympic surfing.
Right. And this is a body that not only is focused on pro surfing, but is actually engaged then with the Olympic Committee too.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So you got to probably get yourself into a mindset. This is tagged to be potentially one of the largest ever viewed surfing contests ever. So it's no pressure, right?
The stage is set. The stage is set.
Yeah. We talked about this, and, I would just welcome anybody that wants to know more about Rich and hear our episode. We did episode 17 released last September. We had really set the stage of being a judge is because you're not only a judge in the Olympics, but you're a pro surfing judge. We went through your journey to becoming the pro judge. And then we talked about Tokyo a lot on that show. We'll talk more about Paris this time, as you were initial judge for the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. Yes. So what I wanted to do a little bit today, though, is I just, really wanted to talk a little bit about, as you're getting ready to go over there, you and I both recognized when we met last time that from an impact to an industry and the setup for what's about to happen in Tahiti once in a lifetime, what's your mindset right now as you're getting ready to go over there and set the stage a little bit about what you're getting ready to go into? Because not a lot of people know the surfing conditions.
Sure.
It's about ready to be shown nationally or internationally. Yeah,
it's interesting you asked that, because I've had 3 or 4 people ask me that in the last couple of days. How do I feel? What's it like, on the verge of going to Tahiti for the Olympics? Do you feel pressure? Do you feel nervous? And, I'd like to lie and say, no pressure at all. I feel great. But honestly, I do. And it's atypical for me. Normally, I don't feel the pressure, or the weight of the event or the significance of the event we're going to do, whether it be a world championship or to some degree, even the Olympics in Tokyo. This one feels more weighted. I feel the pressure now. I usually don't feel it until I'm there actually at the site. And I don't know exactly why that is. I think that has a lot to do with, what's been happening with the preparation, of this venue specifically. And also, the nature of the conditions and the wave at Teahupo'o and this place and the raw power of it.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the beach conditions
Sure.
And the surf conditions there, but getting ready to kind of go over there just to kind of set the stage. When you look at what's happening, this competition was a little bit different. Usually when you turn on the Olympics, you watch the opening event or the opening ceremony and you see like a tremendous amount of athletes, world class, walking around. Oh, that ceremony is going to happen in Paris. So you're 9,400 miles away in Tahiti. And a little bit of a difference too is that not every country is represented.
Correct, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, we have 2 divisions. We have men's and women's. We have 24 men and 24 women. And the reason why every country is not represented is because of the limited number of athletes and the limited number of qualification spots for those athletes.
Yeah. So something that you and I had talked about, there was really two tracks happening over the last 2 years since 2022, which was the athletes, the surfers, needed to go through a battery of global or international surf contests. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. But kind of in parallel and not so talked about, the judges are actually getting evaluated to, I believe you had told me last time, 15 judges in total for the Olympics. Could you just give a real quick primer of kind of how that's set up?
Sure. Let's go through the numbers first. So for the actual panel, it's a 5-man panel. So we have 7 judges because we always have 2 rotating. There's 2 head judges and 2 priority judges. So in total, that's 11, judging or technical officials. We have beach marshals and spotters and technical director and contest director that, add to the total tally. But actual skilled judges, who do what we do, there's 11 of us for this event.
Yeah. And so that process, I've got to ask you on the air here is that, you and I talked and probably about 6 months ago, I stopped following the qualifications. You had told me, Troy, it's not a guarantee that none of the judges, so you're kind of going through. And I noticed as we got closer to the Olympics, I think just trying to be courteous and respectful, they didn't really advertise a lot of like how the judge part of the competition was going. So just being, again, respectful, don't ask, don't tell. I just kind of, so I was a little surprised. And then at the end, I kind of reached out and said, okay, Rich, I got to know, did you make it? And you're like, I'm in, I'm going. But had to be, how was that process for you kind of going through?
It's a couple of year process, to tell you the truth. I mean, at every one of our ISA World Championships we have throughout the year is an opportunity for the judges that are there and the head judges like myself to have our performances evaluated. We collect analytical data for the panel judges. There's opportunities for the team and the management around to observe the role of the head judge and how we're performing in that role. That goes into the selection. So it's not just here you have one shot, let's see how you go. It's over a couple of years where we actually go through the process of selecting the Olympic panel.
Wow. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to kind of ask you about is you're getting ready to go over there. You were in Tahiti just about a month ago, right?
Yes.
In a pre-stage event.
Yes.
Talk to the audience a little bit about the conditions and why is this such a dangerous place to have a surfing contest?
Imagine yourself a quarter mile or more offshore. Okay, you're in the middle of a deep channel, hundreds of feet deep, and then all of a sudden, you pull up basically to a reef that's less than 4 feet deep. And you turn around and you can't even see the wave coming, and all of a sudden the ocean just folds over itself. The volume of water and the raw power as it sucks off the reef and drains to form the wave in Tahiti, which is Teahupo'o, is like nothing I can ever put into words that will really, truly give you the feeling like when you're there actually in person. It's the most raw Mother Nature I've ever seen. It's beautiful, it's captivating, and absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. The way that it was kind of laid out too is that you usually have a village, like an Olympic village. And I know you're going to be over there. What they have said, as I've been kind of keeping tabs on this, is that a lot of the athletes and potentially the judges are staying with folks because the infrastructure is really not in place to have this many people come, or a cruise ship. I think they put off the coast there.
They did. I'm blanking on the name of the specific pass, but it's about a 30-minute boat ride away where the cruise ship is going to be located, because it's a really small local community. I mean, this is true Polynesia, still intact. And a lot of us are staying with local families, right there at the point in the village of Teahupo'o. And
when we talked about the opening ceremonies, I know, like I said, you and I talked even over the weekend of like, they had some crazy ideas at the beginning that they would have everybody end up in Tahiti, fly back to Paris for the opening ceremonies, and then fly back to surf. But this thing, we're sitting here today is Wednesday. Yeah. This contest is Saturday. Yeah. And And you're now in path, getting ready. So you're going to be taking off here fairly soon to go over there, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I take off tomorrow morning. Yeah.
And about the opening ceremony, the kind of something I thought was kind of really unique being part of Tahiti was what they had. They said they're going to do a Sands of the Nation ceremony. Yeah. You talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Sands of the World ceremony. And we do that. We do that at every one of our ISA World Championship opening events. So all of the represented nations have an opportunity to come up on stage, one as a flag bearer and one as a sand pour. And they get up on stage and represent their country, and they bring a little bit of sand from a particular beach anywhere in that country, and pour it into a big box, and all these different colors and grains and textures of sand sort of coalesce into one. And I think the representation there is, we're all one. In the world of surfing, and even in a broader sense, speaking of the ocean and how it brings people together, we're all one. We're all in this together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rich, how does it beach in the surf compare in Tokyo as compared to what you're about ready to see in Tahiti?
First of all, there's no beach. We're out in the middle of the ocean on a reef pass, on a fringing reef where, the nature of the wave, it comes out of a deep trench and just folds over itself onto a reef. It's in some moments, the water can be less than 6 inches deep,
Wow.
And even inside the impact zone, the reef goes completely dry. So that's one difference. The second difference of many, I think, is that in Tokyo, we were dealing with a beach break scenario. We're affected by the tides. The ebb and flow of the tides changes the nature of the wave a little bit. Mm-hmm. The consequence of the wave, the length of ride, the characteristics of the wave between Surigasaki and Chiba and Teahupo'o, I don't think could be more different.
Do you think that any of the skill sets that the surfers have, do you think there's people that have an advantage over another because they're used to a reef break versus something else?
Sure, absolutely. I think that, the local Tahitian surfers, have an advantage. The surfers coming from Hawaii, surfers that are more experienced in heavy waves of consequence, have a little bit more advantage over surfers that maybe from an area or territory where they grew up surfing mainly, long point breaks or beach breaks.
So we talked about there could be some pretty significant waves, the storm systems that are off the coast there. Mm-hmm. What factors play into surfers' ability to get a score? If the waves are small and it's just basic versus too big, and I think it can be too big. Sometimes you have to cancel. Mm-hmm. What is the impact of the potential wave quality?
The wave quality, well, the amazing thing about this wave, and another reason why I think this venue was chosen, is because it is one of the world's most perfect waves. Whether it's 4 feet or 20 feet, it's highly predictable. It breaks in the same location, the same pattern. And there's some variations depending on the angle of the swell and the period of the swell. I want to say there's actually some bigger variations when it comes to swell period and the power and the energy in the wave. But even on a 4-foot day, we're still mainly evaluating, the barrel, mm-hmm. and that's a big difference in judging other surfing competitions where this is more the barrel rules.
Mm-hmm. Question for you. And like I said, in our episode that we did back in September, you talked about how you evaluate and score. Sure. But when you have surfers that are out there, there's the adrenaline, the excitement. Mm-hmm. This is a big deal. What are some common mistakes coming out of the chute that you see that some of the surfers do? Like I'm thinking about this. If I'm a viewer at home, mm-hmm. like this can be must see TV.
Sure.
But people may listen to this episode and go, let me think about what the judges are actually looking for.
Sure.
So, any tips that you would be able to give to something the viewers, the lay people would want to look at?
Let me set the stage for you a little bit. So if we have a sizable swell, which it looks like we may kick off with a good start right away on Saturday with a solid overhead swell. A surfer takes off deep on a wave, starts to ride inside the barrel, and then exits. It seems really easy, but actually the level of detail that we're analyzing is way more detailed. So, we're looking at the takeoff, the degree of difficulty of the takeoff, or the surfers taking off under the lip. Are they knifing it straight away? Are they airdropping? Are they taking off behind the peak? Are they taking off backside with no grab? The length and depth of the ride in the tube. Are they riding on the foam ball? Are they in front of the foam ball? Are they coming from behind the foam ball? Are they doing any maneuvers inside the tube to generate speed so that they actually complete it? And then the exit itself, is it a clean exit? Are they coming out through, what we would call the doggy door or chandelier? I mean, so if you're a viewer at home and you're watching this and you're seeing someone take off on a wave and they get barreled and they come out and it's just like, oh, that's it. There's so many subtle things that happen inside that. And I think that, like I said, the stage is set, and especially for this venue and this wave, Teahupo'o, because of the way that we are going to film it, the camera angles, the closeness of the media and everybody being right there in the channel at the end of the wave. They're going to have a chance to look inside the barrel as these surfers are riding it and see all these subtle nuances that I'm trying to describe here.
So out of the 48 surfers, 24 men, 24 women, the process they went through, as we talked about, is a qualification. You've been watching these surfers now for 2 years, and any surprises that when maybe people that made it that you were surprised, or people that didn't make it you were surprised? I know a couple that come to mind, but I'm just curious what your take would be. Yeah,
there's some surprises, I think, from sort of the old veterans, the seasoned veterans. I would want to say that you would expect to actually be representing their nation and be in the Olympics for their team.
Like Kelly Slater.
Would be a good example. But I think that falls back on the qualification process. And it's not a national selection that, they just select a surfer to represent them. You actually have to compete in competition to qualify. And then to actually be represented by your nation, you have to do well, and not just one contest, 2, sometimes 3.
It's interesting is that, we're here in Southern California, so Huntington Beach, Kelly Slater's a legend there. So everybody knows a lot of it does have to do with like when you're out there during your heat, what waves you get, all of that. I mean, it's, if given the right situation, these guys are all, and girls are unbelievable. But like you said, it is a qualification, and it's, definitely. What about people that you think like dark horses, or because like and you're a judge, so I know you need to be impartial, but I look at the 48, some of the names I know, 5 Americans, but it's funny, 2 of the folks, one from Brazil, is actually, they live here in Huntington Beach. I think there's one other person that is on the team, but now, they're all buddies here, but they're actually surfing for their home country. I was just kind of curious your take on potential surfers. It might be interesting just to provide a perspective.
Sure, and I can give you a couple of my personal opinions for names, but for me, my job number 1 as a judge is not to recognize the surfers by name. It's just truly by color in the water. I don't care who you are, where you come from. I'm looking at your performance on the wave, in the water, and what you do. But I have been surprised. There's a young man, I think, from Germany by the name of Tim Elter, who was, I had never heard of him before until this last year. I started seeing him in a couple of our World Championship events and his level of surfing. And then, through the grapevine, I hear stories about him and his ability to surf waves of consequence. And I think that he could be, a highlight to watch. I know Alan Cleland from Mexico is a specialist at, charging heavy waves.
What about Siki, the 15-year-old from
China?
This
15-year-old from China.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. I cannot believe her level of surfing at such a young age.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. Like I said, I don't want to tread too deep into that, but I just, for the listeners that might just be wanting to watch this and kind of things to look for, that would be interesting to see. Kind of as we look a little bit at trying to figure out, this contest as it kind of shapes up, the dates of this, it goes for about 2 weeks. Something that I read just recently was that this will be the first surf contest. Well, maybe it won't be. I'll test it on you, and you'll tell me whether I'm way off. But that it may be so treacherous that they have to wear helmets. Talk about that. I was just curious. Is that true?
Yeah, to my knowledge, it's not a requirement, but I know it is advised or heavily recommended, I think by both the ISA and the International Olympic Committee for participants or contestants to wear helmets. And it's not a new thing in our industry. I think it's been happening. It's a subtle transition over the last few years that we're recognizing that, you don't have to even hit the reef to have some major head trauma. Mm-hmm. The wipeouts that surfers are incurring at waves like Teahupo'o and Pipeline and Fiji and, even, in Western Australia are significant. I myself have had many impacts, on wipeouts, just hitting the water and getting concussions.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to recognize that, safety must come first. And for competitors, even on their own volition, without the recommendation from the ISA and the International Olympic Committee, are already wearing helmets in competition and in pre-surfs. And even not, even what you would consider a local beach break wave or a wave that doesn't have that raw power, they're still wearing helmets. And I think it's a good thing.
I got a question for you from where you sit personally. So what's interesting is I've been to U.S. Opens, many of them here in Huntington Beach. I've been to Bonsai Pipeline, to the Pipeline Masters, and I was in Hawaii. If there's controversy in judging there, the normal person wouldn't have a clue because unless you're part of the crew on walkie-talkies or going back and forth, the people that are watching, it's hey, there's a delay.
Yeah.
And but when the Olympics are going in full blown, the network van that's going to be recording this, you're on the clock. Yes. And so anything that would have to be adjudicated, you talked about the judging process of the 5 people that potentially judge, and then there's a whole structure. And the reason why there's a structure is to quickly adjudicate potential issues.
Absolutely.
Is that something that it kind of does make it a little nerve-wracking knowing you're on the clock?
Yeah, I think just the platform, of the Olympics itself and the significance of it already adds that extra pressure and that weight. And I think compound that with the fact that we are in such a small, localized, area and community and very condensed, kind of brings that out even more. Yeah.
And you talked about I'm talking about the network truck now, but you and I lived in Hawaii for a couple of years, and when we met, we were over there. And one of my favorite things to do is go with a couple of buddies, go to a bar, and you watch the surfing. And I mean, since the 80s and 90s to today, you go into most places in Hawaii and there's a reel or closed circuit TV, and it's unbelievable. And then I remember, that's my frame of reference. And no offense, because you didn't have anything to do with this, but in Tokyo, it wasn't as captivating. Yeah. And I was I know good surfing when I see it, but it was hard to see. I think people should have a very high expectation. I could imagine the network sending people underwater to see the reef, seeing, there's the construction of the tower, and there's a little bit of a controversy with that. But I would think this, not only will it be the most exciting thing to be able to watch people really putting their lives in the line for the surf contest, but the angles, the shots, they really, for people to understand the mechanics of surfing, I think will be really explained in this. What do you see it the same way?
I do. And I think that, like you said, the differences between, the Olympics we had in Japan and now what we're coming up against here in Tahiti couldn't be more different, from a viewership perspective, from a athlete and competitors perspective, from a judging perspective, in many ways. And like you said, the network televisions and, how they're going to actually present this show, capture it and present it to the viewer is different as well. I mean, in Chiba, there was network cameras that are filming, from our tower on the beach, maybe down the beach or up the beach to get different angles. Here in Tahiti, we're going to have our judge's view, obviously, but we're also going to have, water photographers and filmers in the water, in the channel, right at the end of the wave. I mean, there's going to be surfers that are going to be coming out of the barrel after the wave explodes on itself in the spit, and that spit's going to be probably right in the face of the broadcast cameras. Wow. So I think the audience will get a much more, real feeling of what that may be like and what it would be like to experience it yourself. To some degree, I think I mentioned this earlier, is that there's no way that I can put into words. I could paint the most eloquent, beautiful picture with words and descriptors, and trying to paint a picture in your mind of what it's like, but there's no way to do that unless you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like I said, I think it's really exciting, but I think kind of, that's the upside. It's going to be unbelievable. The one thing that we talked about and I wanted to explore a little bit further was this fanfare and this most watched TV event has some pros and cons. And, the pros are, surfing's fun. It's a blast. It's a great exercise sport. It's the people. It's but it's also, especially growing up here in California, it's a different culture. Yeah. It depends on how deep you get into it. I think we've talked about straddling the line. I know for me, I still have friends that religiously surf, and, real life takes over for most of us that have to go back to work and do that. But the industry itself, which has always been kind of a little bit of its own industry, is kind of letting the world in. And what do you think the upside and the downsides of now having the most watched surfing contest ever so far in the world will happen starting this weekend? What do you think the impact will be on the industry?
My hope, the impact, and I think this is my overarching, goal, as I get older in life and I'm doing this, for more and more years, and watching my kids grow up in the ocean and watching my friends' kids grow up in the ocean and traveling around to remote destinations and actually seeing the impacts, both good and bad, that humans have on the marine environment. My hope is that this again will be a platform or a stage to create more awareness, more ocean mindedness, and more, just captivate a broader audience to the importance of our oceans. And we really, really, truly need to protect them and to do more for them.
Yeah, you and I had talked in our last episode that you had went down to El Salvador, some of these other nations that have waterways that come into the ocean, and plastics, and all sorts of stuff coming into the ocean right there. But you also said that because of surfing and the visibility, that it's made people a little bit more aware to be better stewards. I think that from that perspective, I think what about the athletes themselves, because it seems like this will be able to showcase a skill set that goes from being just something that, like, when you're in California, that, when you're younger, it's like, oh, you're the surfer guys, it was, that no one really had an appreciation for the athleticism that would go into the sport.
Yeah. Well, I think this also, this event here in the location being at Teahupo'o will show the world, the supreme athleticism that I think is demanded to be a professional surfer or a surfer at the top level in today's world. You have to be, fearless and confident and bold and strong in mind and strong in body. I mean, there's so many different aspects of many different sports. That I think play a role in becoming a professional competitive surfer.
So, Rich, when you get on the plane, you're going to be leaving here tomorrow. And
tomorrow morning.
Yeah. How many days are you gone? And from your perspective, how do you anticipate your schedule being while you're there?
I think I'll be gone for 12, 13 days maybe, and my schedule will be full. I know I get off, I leave LA tomorrow morning, connect through a different city, and then down to Papeete. And I think from the moment I get off the plane, it's going to be, pedal to the metal. We have meetings and our opening ceremony on Friday down in Tahiti, and it looks from the forecast that we could be starting right away on Saturday morning.
And the time zone difference, I think, is at 3 hours from here?
3 hours from here. It's the same as the Hawaiian Standard Time.
Oh, okay. Wow, it seems like much further away than Hawaii. But and then when you're there, like you said, pedal to the metal. When it's over, any time to go surfing after?
I'm hoping there's as much time as possible. We have I believe we have a 10-day holding period or window to run the best 4 days. And I haven't seen the forecast much past the weekend. It looks like we're going to have solid waves this weekend. We'll see what next week brings. But even the mornings before, the evenings after, myself and all of us judges, we want to be in the water as much as the athletes themselves. So I'm really hoping to have a lot of water time.
Well, Rich, I'm super excited for you, and I'm honored that to be able to have you on the show as you're getting ready to go over there. And like you said, we'll call it the official unofficial send off for you for the Olympics. But I'm very appreciative, and I hope that you have a safe trip. I hope that the surfers stay safe out there too, and that that we don't have to see a time pressure thing with you in the network TV because Rich needs to make a decision.
Well, thank goodness it's not all my decision. So
I know.
But thanks for having me, Troy, and tune in to, in my opinion, what could be the world's best show.
It's awesome. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining me today on the Ameritocracy Show. Be sure to follow me on social media and our website at troyedgar.com, where you can get more information and sign up for my weekly email. I hope you have a great week.